The first drop of heavy rain hits the pavement, and a normally active dog instantly locks their paws, drops their weight, and refuses to move. Traditional training models frequently diagnose this moment as a behavioral flaw. Handlers categorize the dog as stubborn, throwing a tantrum, or attempting a crude display of dominance to control the walk. The prescribed intervention is blunt force. Trainers advise owners to apply sharp leash pressure, firmly drag the dog forward, and demand compliance. This reaction is an acute, physiologically driven state of sensory paralysis. Treating a systemic biological crash as a simple discipline problem guarantees failure and actively damages the animal's nervous system. Sensory paralysis occurs when the canine nervous system receives an influx of environmental stimuli that exceeds its processing threshold. Rain is a systemic disruptor to the dog's entire sensorium. The dropping temperature of the water is the least of their problems. To understand the crash, we must analyze the exact sequence of physiological failures triggered by a storm: tactile overload, olfactory erasure, and barometric stress. Instead of fighting these variables with physical force, handlers can utilize the human-canine neurochemical bond to override this autonomic stress response. Understanding how these biological systems overlap repositions the handler's role. The focus shifts from physical enforcement to neurochemical management of a complex environment. The canine somatic nervous system is highly tuned to detect minute shifts in the environment. This baseline sensitivity is especially pronounced in short-haired breeds with minimal physical insulation. Their bodies employ a mechanism called tactile gating to prioritize touch signals. Cold water droplets continuously striking the ears, muzzle, and back bypass this gate, acting as a persistent, severe itch stimulus. There is no localized escape from a rainstorm. The relentless bombardment of dermatological receptors creates an inescapable wall of sensory input. This anatomical model shows how the nervous system struggles to filter out that massive influx of tactile data. The rapid, disorganized firing along the back and ears represents acute overstimulation. This volume of rapid neural firing pushes the central processing centers past their available bandwidth. To cope, the brain halts all forward locomotion, initiating a biomechanical freeze. Your dog's refusal to move is their nervous system hitting its absolute processing limit and initiating a hard pause to avoid a complete overload. While the body is dealing with physical bombardment, heavy precipitation also degrades the dog's primary interface with the physical world, their olfactory system. Dogs rely on a chemical map. They use scent trails and environmental odors for both spatial geometry and social navigation. This spatial map visualizes that invisible world, representing the volatile organic compounds that a dog uses to read the terrain. Rain physically interacts with these scent markers through a process called aqueous masking. As the water volume increases, it traps, dilutes, and washes those compounds away. This erasure is significant. The dog's primary high-resolution map of the environment drops offline in seconds. Without their nose, a dog must rely on secondary senses, sight and sound, in an environment degraded by falling water and shifting light. This lack of high-resolution olfactory data mandates a posture of extreme caution while the dog attempts to reconcile the environment through secondary senses. The third invisible trigger arrives well before the first drop of water. Storms are accompanied by a sudden, measurable drop in barometric pressure. That atmospheric shift, paired with degraded traction on wet surfaces, activates ancient survival protocols inherited directly from wolf ancestors. The manifestation of this protocol is the immediate halting of movement. The dog locks their paws to execute a stationary threat scan. Looking at this neurological schematic, we can track the internal endocrine response. The environmental uncertainty lights up the amygdala and triggers the HPA axis, causing systemic cortisol levels to spike. This mandatory threat scan initiates intense sympathetic nervous system arousal. The bloodstream is flooded with cortisol, prepping the body for a fight or flight response. Applying tension to the leash at this exact moment provides physical confirmation that the dog's panic is justified. It mimics the feeling of being trapped. Forcing physical compliance during an active, chemically driven threat scan strips the animal of their ability to cautiously assess the area, leading directly to acute distress. The physiological problem is a cortisol spike driven by environmental overwhelm. The biological solution requires an active countermeasure to downregulate the autonomic nervous system. In 2015, researchers at Azabu University mapped a critical neurochemical pathway that allowed handlers to execute exactly that kind of intervention. This dual brain schematic illustrates the mechanics of the gaze loop habit, a specific behavioral interaction initiated by the handler. By pausing and establishing sustained eye contact, the handler triggers a mutual neurochemical release. Oxytocin acts as a powerful antagonist to cortisol, actively suppressing the HPA axis and pulling the dog out of fight-or-flight mode. Handlers can support this internal chemical shift through external sensory shielding. Using a rain jacket or an umbrella provides a physical barrier that reduces the localized somatic noise. Effective intervention is chemical and environmental. Stimulate oxytocin and shield the tactile receptors, replacing the urge to use physical leverage. By comparing the standard method against the biological reality, the mechanics of a successful rainy day walk become clear. This comparison models divergent outcomes. The left side shows compounding failure. Leash tension stacks on olfactory and tactile overload, causing behavioral shutdown. The right side illustrates success. Establishing a handler gaze loop biochemically overrides the threat response with oxytocin. The root cause of the dog's refusal to walk is a biological crash. Therefore, it strictly demands a biological solution, not escalating physical punishment. A dog's reaction to a storm is driven by a triad of tactile gating overload, aqueous masking of their scent map, and barometric anxiety. Recognizing these underlying mechanisms separates evidence-based handlers from amateur trainers who rely solely on mechanical force to demand compliance. In modern canine ethology, external behavior serves as a direct readout of internal biological states. In adverse environments, physical leverage is ineffective. Handlers must learn to leverage their biological bond as the primary tool for nervous system regulation. Mastering the neurochemical reality of the canine's trading environmental hurdle into a precise opportunity for biological connection.